This is CBC Vancouver News.
We believe that solar energy will be the source of our ability for a lot of our families to live off the grid.
Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, the BC First Nation is set to build the largest off-grid solar panel farm in Canada. Also,
having chronic illness is having a full-time job that you never get to take a vacation from.
A nightmare wait for a Nanaimo woman trying to find a full-time doctor. A deeper look at the toll it takes on doctors and patients. Plus, it's Earth Day. We take a look at some tips, tricks, and personal stories from those making a difference around the province. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Zahra Premji. As the world marks Earth Day, a First Nation in central BC is looking to the sky for sustainable, clean energy. Algacho First Nation is set to build the largest off-grid solar power farm in the country. It says the Indigenous-owned project will spark new economic opportunities and energy independence. Our Janella Hamilton traveled to Anaheim Lake near Bellacoola to learn more.
The remote community of Anaheim Lake in BC's Chilcotin region is the home of the Algacho First Nation. It's one of at least 44 communities in the province dependent on diesel to generate power and heat.
If we run out of diesel, then the light goes out. That's it. Even you're miles away, you can hear the generator running. And you see big cloud of black smoke coming out sometimes.
Clean energy think tank the Pembina Institute says remote communities in BC are entitled to the same clean, reliable energy as all customers in the province. And for decades, remote communities have been forced to rely on expensive and polluting diesel fuel.
And this partnership aims to not just promote sustainability, but also economic development for the Algacho First Nation.
But soon, a new First Nation-owned energy project will provide community members with a source of reliable, clean energy. It will be the largest off-grid solar panel farm in Canada.
We believe that solar energy will be the source of our ability for a lot of our families to live off the grid.
Between road bans, having a tough time getting the fuel out here, if we have fires that closing the roads down, whatnot, so it's nice to have another means of power.
On Friday, the Algacho Energy Corporation signed a historic electricity purchase agreement with BC Hydro to help the remote community transition off diesel.
As you've heard, will reduce the diesel reliance by 1.1 million litres a year. Very significant, about 65% reduction.
Not only will it provide jobs in construction, but it will also provide revenue for the UFN community.
She says the project is an example of how First Nations can champion energy sovereignty and economic reconciliation.
It will ensure that we continue to build a healthy future for our children.
But experts warn solar power does have its limitations.
Any sort of renewable, solar or wind, they're not going to be able to meet 100% of the energy needs. But on the whole, there's very little drawback to actually putting in place these sorts of projects that again just add energy security and reduce costs for off-grid communities.
All that areas we can see up to those trees.
The solar panel farm will stretch over 10 hectares on land that was once home to the First Nations sawmill.
We have to be the stewardships of that land. We have to protect it in every way, and this project is one of the ways.
The Algacho Energy Corporation says the project is estimated to cost about $30 million. Just over $15 million is being funded by federal and provincial governments.
Really exciting. I just never ever thought that we would have this in our small little community.
Shovels are expected to be in the ground by this August, with the solar panel farm up and running by fall of 2025. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Anaheim Lake.
A shortage of doctors in Nanaimo turned into a nightmare for one BC woman. After spending more than 300 days in hospital since 2018, Bonnie Catterson found out her family nurse practitioner was leaving. As Claire Palmer reports, she has found a temporary doctor, but other physicians say her success story is rare.
By the way, I don't do this in this bathroom.
Panic. That's how Catterson describes the weeks where she didn't think she was going to have access to primary care.
It's my worst nightmare. Having chronic illness is having a full-time job that you never get to take a vacation from, that you don't get paid for, and that you can't ever quit.
It was at the last minute she says she got a call about a temporary arrangement, but she's still on the wait list for a doctor to accept her full-time into their practice, despite having already spent 8 weeks in hospital this year for Crohn's.
Because of the shortages, they are constantly afraid. They are not able to give the standard of care that they were taught to give, and people are falling through the cracks.
This is the only walk-in clinic in the city. One doctor at the clinic estimates that there are about 30 to 40,000 people in Nanaimo without primary care.
It's very difficult to see 20 patients through a shift, every one of them asking if you're able to take them on and having to simply say that you're not able to do it. It's taxing and difficult to be able to do that because none of us got into this line of work because we don't want to be helpful.
The province says it's working to address it. Minister Adrian Dix at a press conference in Nanaimo last Tuesday said as many as 700 doctors were added in BC in 9 months. And a new streamlined online system was launched Wednesday to connect patients to practitioners.
So we really hope that people are going to start to get good news quickly about connecting them with that primary health care that they need and deserve.
While BC now has one of the highest doctors to patient ratios in the country, Van Pell says Nanaimo still has a higher unattached rate than the provincial average.
We have 40,000 people who only can access care in this community through either the emergency department or through an urgent primary care that is unfortunately chronically understaffed. This doesn't make for a very good cocktail when it comes to providing appropriate health care.
Van Pell says that having a large population only access care through emergency means can result in worse outcomes and lengthier wait times at emergency and urgent care. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
The Jewish community around the world is celebrating Passover. It recounts the biblical story of the Exodus from Egypt after years of slavery. But amid the violence and destruction of the Israel-Hamas war, this year's celebration has a different feeling for some. Our Zahra Premji spoke with some local members of the Jewish community to find out how they're marking the holiday.
Sophia and Yaakov Lewinsky are shopping for their favorite kosher Passover food.
My favorite thing to have is breakfast tea on Pesach.
See here, matzah, it's like bread that hasn't risen.
It's a time of year that Lewinsky's look forward to.
First, no school. It's fun cleaning up your house and getting to taste foods that you don't really taste on the weekends.
Monday marks the start of week-long Passover holiday. It recounts the exodus from Egypt and has become a time to gather with family and enjoy a meal known as the Seder.
The Jewish people have a love for life and a love for celebration, and Passover is very much a holiday to celebrate family and children.
But this year's celebration have been impacted by Israel-Hamas war. According to Israeli figures, 250 people were taken hostage by Hamas after the October 7th attacks. About half were released in week-long ceasefire in November, while the rest still remain in Gaza.
I think there will be a different mood because of the hostage situation in the Gaza.
It's still on the top of everybody's minds.
There is an empty spot at our Seder tables. Many families are leaving an empty chair for a hostage family. We will sing a bit less joyously as we sing our Passover songs and we gather for Seder, but at the same time we'll embrace in the comfort of being together, in being in a room with friends and with allies.
Moskowitz says the war in Middle East is preventing thousands of Jewish families from traveling to meet their loved ones in and out of Israel.
We will be very aware of that at my Passover Seder and at others, that though we sit in relative safety, there are others in grave danger, those in Israel, those in Gaza, and it's the responsibility of all human beings to make this world a safe place for Gazans, for Palestinians, for Jews and Israelis as well.
Zahra Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, a group of BC teachers want something added to the province's curriculum. They're hoping to teach the history of the creation of Israel and the expulsion of Palestinians from the land. As Radio Canada's Francis Plourde reports, their initiative is meeting some opposition.
It's a proposal brought forward at a sensitive time.
A motion passed at the BCTF's AGM in March asking the teachers' union to lobby the government to add the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and the expulsion of Palestinians from their land as a suggested topic into the BC curriculum. The driving force? A group of teachers, some of them Palestinians, some of them Jewish, facing questions in their classroom about the Middle East and feeling uncomfortable answering them without guidelines.
As a Palestinian educator, it's been challenging in the sense that I don't feel my people's history is represented right now, and there's not much mention of Palestine and Israel really in the curriculum right now.
It's noticeably absent. It does impact the kind of background learning that teachers themselves do and are exposed to, and if something is in the curriculum, that means teachers would receive education about this topic and be much better equipped in order to have that discussion with students.
The forcing of thousands of Palestinians from their homes is known in Arabic as the Nakba, or the catastrophe. Those forced to leave, never to return, in the midst of the war that led to the creation of Israel. This educational expert says if you wade into the Middle East conflict, you need to talk about the complete historical picture, and that includes the Nakba.
I don't know how you could teach about the history of Palestine, Israel. I certainly don't think you could teach about the refugee issue over time and the historic roots of that. I don't think you could teach about that without the Nakba. It's a pivotal moment. It's a key issue. It's a historical root issue of what we're seeing today.
But the movement to include the Nakba is facing backlash among members of the Jewish community. This mother of two who lived in Israel started a petition urging the government to dismiss the proposal over fears it will target marginalized students.
A lot of questions about how this curriculum is going to be built, because this is very one-sided. None of the Jewish community was involved in this, the organized community. It's a very complex topic, and by simplifying it, it becomes purely a political propaganda in the classroom, which it doesn't belong there.
Jewish leaders have reached out to the BCTF over fears it will compromise the safety of students at a time, they say, Jewish kids and teachers are facing intimidation in the school system.
Characterizing the return of the Jewish people to their ancestral homeland after more than 2,000 years of exile as a catastrophe, it is deeply offensive. Teaching about the Nakba Day will delegitimize Israel. The delegitimization of the Jewish state leads to the demonization and erasure of not just Israelis, but Jewish Canadians who overwhelmingly support Israel. Marking the Nakba Day and teaching about it will worsen the division between students in the classroom.
But not all people in the Jewish community agree. Tamara Herman's family survived the Holocaust. She says it shaped her view of the world, and she's actively fought against discrimination, including anti-Semitism. She feels it's necessary to teach kids the full history of the Middle East in order to break the cycle of violence in the region.
I don't feel that my children can be equipped to be able to find a different trajectory moving forward as they pick up the pieces after this horrific devastation without understanding the history of Palestine and Israel. And that history includes the Nakba. And my child is entitled to learn about it just as much as my child is entitled to learn about the Holocaust.
As for the government, they say they have no intention at this point to change BC's curriculum.
I'm leaving it to the teachers. I feel that they are fully equipped and they have the professional judgment how to assess their student population and how to depart these lessons. So this is what my expectation is, that every child is feeling safe in their schools.
For CBC News, I'm Francis Plourde in Vancouver.
Canadian immigration officials have halted the deportation of climate justice activist Zain Huq 2 days before he was to be sent back to Pakistan for alleged violations of his study permit.
Minister Miller intervened and canceled the removal that was scheduled. And it was due to public pressure from hundreds, if not thousands, of people who were emailing and phoning their representatives in Ottawa.
Huck's future status is still unclear, but his wife has applied to sponsor his permanent residency application. The couple is seeking humanitarian and compassionate considerations. Well, wildfire season is off to an early start in some parts of BC. 2 evacuation alerts are in effect.
Crews are working along the north flank, working on a 20-foot wet line, and we're actioning hotspots on the south flank, the side that faces the highway, and they're being patrolled and extinguished.
One in Endako off Highway 16 west of Prince George, and another in the Caribou region in the Burgess Creek area. They both started Saturday. As of this evening, Endako was downgraded from out of control to being held, while Burgess Creek at 16 square kilometers is still out of control. In total, more than 119 wildfires are considered active across our province. Well, on to the Canucks. The boys in blue are off to a good start after their first home playoff game in almost a decade. They came from behind to beat the Nashville Predators 4-2 in a nail-biter last night.
20 points. There's another chance to score. Dakota Joshua.
The Canucks trailed into the third period but scored 3 times in the last 20 minutes. 2 of those goals from forward Dakota Joshua. Game 2 returns to Rogers Arena tomorrow night at 7.
If you take care of the earth, then it's going to take care of you.
This Earth Day, what one group of volunteers is doing today and every day to celebrate the planet. Coming up after the break. Well, as we mentioned, today is Earth Day, a day to celebrate concrete actions that protect and preserve the environment. Many events took place across the province. CBC's Zahra Premji went out with volunteers working to help clean up debris on the shores of the Fraser River.
Well, it's Earth Day, and we're here to celebrate and acknowledge the importance of healthy, functioning watersheds.
The BC Watershed Security Coalition helps projects support BC watersheds. Today, we're at the Fraser River Tidal Marsh Cleanup Project, along with a special Earth Day guest. What does Earth Day mean to you, Bowen?
If you take care of the earth, then it's going to take care of you.
We're on the territories of the Tsawwassen and Musqueam First Nations. Organizations, along with Tsawwassen First Nation, have partnered together to clean up the Fraser River shoreline, and they've invited us along to see their progress. What is this?
Just a piece of garbage, looks like treated wood, probably from a dock.
The Fraser River Tidal Marsh Cleanup Project has been running since 2021. Since then, they've recovered over 1.5 to 2 tons of garbage every week, and they keep finding more. Do you find a lot of dock pieces?
Yeah, there's a lot of dock material. Most of what we find is styrofoam that's used as the flotation, and just tires that are used as the bumpers along docks.
3, 2, 1.
So this is an example of dock styrofoam. So this is one of the most common objects that we find. If you look at it, you can see all the individual pellets here that degrade and can get eaten by small animals and end up in their diet and then ultimately end up back in our system. So we're removing it from the environment.
I think this is a beautiful but small portion of British Columbia, and this speaks to a larger issue of garbage around this province and how we treat this earth. And I think this project, I hope, is a starting point for more of this kind of work.
The type of work that's so important for our waters year-round. Zahra Premji, CBC News, Delta.
Hey, here's a live shot of the Georgia Viaduct, and Science World looks like it might be sporting the Canucks colors. Darius Madavi will have your full forecast next.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Now, obviously, a lot to watch when it comes to weather. We've got Darius Madavi here to fill us in. Now, Darius, I feel like wildfire season is always starting earlier, but what is happening right now?
Yes, I'm going to be honest, I did not miss this, looking at this map every day, but it seems like we're going to be back into that time because after last night, we saw several fires really take off. Today, we saw several more out-of-control fires start, although we've seen those also come into being held. We've seen some of the fires from last night being held now as well. So a little bit of good news there, but unfortunately, not much reprieve on the way. Remember, we have these extreme drought conditions across the province, really across Western Canada, and that set us a really high baseline. In addition to the very low snowpack that we have, it means just things are very dry, and we're not likely to get any major inputs of precipitation soon. Now, if you look for the north, there are some showers and some flurries coming, but it's not looking like anything serious. No major dumps. Unfortunately, we could really use the precipitation. But if we take a look in the south, bit of a different story. Some rain coming for the south coast and Vancouver Island, likely tomorrow night into Wednesday. Maybe we see some showers in Vancouver on Wednesday, continuing into the day part. But for the most part, just quite a bit of cloud. It is trending towards becoming cloudier and cloudier, so we may see really not much sunshine at all on Wednesday, although for now I am holding out hope. And then you can see some of that activity breaking into the southern interior, but really quite calm there. Now, if you take a look at temperatures, they are staying high in the north above seasonal today and into tomorrow before they really start to fall on Wednesday. But throughout the south, temperatures staying relatively high in the interior, but coming down a little bit on the coast as we see that system roll in before we see a bit of the same on Thursday before temperatures maybe start to come down at the end of this week for the southern interior. But beyond that, things are relatively calm. Winds have calmed down, which is good news in terms of the fire activity. Tomorrow, not much to speak of besides on the north and central coast as well as the northwest. Maybe the North Island getting some showers as well. But for Vancouver, really all we're looking at is quite a bit of sun tomorrow before we see some of that precipitation and more overcast skies move in.
Just when I wanted a sunny weekend, Darius. Thank you anyways.
Thank you.
Now that's your late news for this Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Now wait, before you let that head hit the pillow, take one last scroll through what else is making headlines. Head over to our website, that's cbc.ca/BC. And craving a little more news as you wake up, head over to the early edition on CBC Radio 1 at 5:30. Have a good night.